Suspension is arguably one of the most important parts of a car when it comes to driving dynamics and comfort. And today, I'm going to be replacing suspension on my 2013 BMW F10 535i because it is old, it is squeaky, and it is totally shot. And I'm going to be replacing it with some ECS tuning coilovers. Let's get straight into this. That's right, lowering the F10. It's about time. Honestly, it has been a really long time coming. I have been talking about it, I have been teasing it, and y'all know that I've been wanting to do this for a very long time now. I'm finally lowering the BMW F10 535i. Now, I had a lot of ideas. I was thinking about H&R springs, I was thinking about full coilover kits, I was thinking about airbags. Airbags are too expensive, springs are too expensive for what they are, in my opinion. So the sweet spot, coilovers. And ECS offers, by the way, a really competitively priced coilover kit for the F10 535i. But ECS is not sponsoring this video. They're not sponsoring. But if you're watching ECS, send me an email. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and open up the ECS tuning coilovers. I'm going to go ahead and remove the stock suspension, all four corners. And what I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to lower the car a little bit, install the ECS tuning coilovers. I'm going to show y'all how it looks. So, of course, stick around to the end to see how that looks. And, of course, throughout the video, stay so you can actually see how I do it. But yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead and unbox the coilovers first, and then we can start removing the stock suspension. I'm so excited. Let's get straight into this. All right, let's open up the box and see what's inside. All right, check this out. Wow. These are beefy. This looks like the rear. I will say this should be the rear. Wow. ECS tuning coilover system, of course, with adjustable ride height right here. Preload, all that. Check that out. Wow. Of course, you can adjust the rebound. Yes, rear. Check it out. Wow, it's a beefy piece of kit. I mean, it's pretty heavy actually, but it's a good kind of heavy, you know? You got the matching black nuts up here. Wow. This is really neat. Let's try to find one of the fronts. All right, here's the front. Check that out. Of course, you also have the adjustments here. Black nuts. Wow. Wow. I mean, this thing is seriously beefy. It's got some weight to it. But what I'm going to do pretty much is I'm going to take obviously the stock struts off, and I'm going to compare them to these. Of course, I'll show y'all. And I'm also going to measure them so that way I get a gauge for what I want to lower the car by. So, for example, since I want to get rid of more or less 2 fingers, I'm going to measure that scientifically, right? Of wheel gap between the front wheels and the front fenders. I'm going to go ahead and take the stock ones off compared to these. And then, of course, subtract whatever this measures, whatever it is, and remove it from that. That way, of course, it is what I want. And it's going to settle. It's going to take some time for it to actually, all 4 corners to fully settle. And it might be a little, out of whack, so I might have to readjust it. And, of course, I have to get the car aligned after the fact, right? But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, get the car, and start taking the stock suspension off. Let's do it. Now also, this car is totally on the stock suspension, and even though it is an M Sport, it has a pretty wide wheel gap. So I'm going to try to lower that a little bit. I'm going to measure, and I'm going to see what actually would probably look best. I just want to get rid of this gap all the way around. Well, not all the way around. I can't really do anything about that. But it should look a lot better when the top is lowered. And the rear is definitely a lot better. But still, I'm going to lower it just a little bit. I can still fit about 2.5 fingers in here. It's a little high for my liking, so I'm going to lower this a little bit. But like I said, this suspension is totally shot. It is loud. It is squeaky. It is wobbly. I mean, when I turn and change lanes on the highway, even on back roads, the car just pitches and yaws or whatever. It literally just goes side to side, and it's really bad. In fact, I can show you. With one hand, I can push down. You might have not seen it, but the car went down and back up. It did not go straight back up. It kind of bounced around, which is annoying. That's totally wrong, so I'm going to fix that. But you can even see, for example, if I move the car, how much it moves and how easily. And when I let go, it keeps going for a little bit. That's not right. All 4 corners of this car are totally shot, and it's time to do something about it. All right, let's go ahead and remove the wheel. All right, so obviously my phone stopped recording right as I was removing the wheel, but I got the wheel off. So now we can see what we're working with. Of course, here is the original suspension right here. You can see the original sway bar end link is here as well, which will be replaced with ECS tunings for a beefier adjustable one, because this is not adjustable. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to start removing this bolt right there. You can see that, of course, holding the bottom of the suspension on. And then, of course, once that's loose, I'm going to go ahead over to the top of the car. I'm going to open the hood, and I'll go to the top of the strut, where I'll remove the 3 nuts from the top. Now, I've seen a lot of videos, I've seen a lot of people say different things, but I'm going to go ahead and try just to go ahead and remove those 3 up there, this big bolt down here, right there. And of course, the sway bar end links. Gonna go ahead and get those out. Hopefully, should be it. Let's see. All right, check it out. We finally got that bolt off from underneath right there, holding the bottom of the strut on, and it is loose. Now you can see I can move the whole assembly. It's not that easy, but I can move it. Of course, I did get the sway bar end link loose and off. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go over to the top, open the hood, and remove the 3 little bolts, or nuts I should say, holding the top of the strut on from the strut tower. Shouldn't be too bad. Let's do it. You can of course see right here the 3 nuts that I'm talking about. And go ahead and pop off this dust cover as well, so you can see right there. Awesome. Let's go ahead and pop them off. All right, I just got it back. Obviously, this always happens. You drop the last bolt. Yeah, so it fell down, but I got it. Now we can finally take the entire strut out. Very straightforward, I should say. All right, I have actually just finished this side, but of course I'm gonna show y'all how to do it on the other side. But I did finish, and it's actually not that bad at all. Pretty straightforward, as I imagined. Everything is in place, tightened, looks good. Everything looks good. Of course, the adjustable sway bar end links I have to adjust once the car's on the ground to get a real feel for when the sway bar is actually parallel with the ground. But I did, since I dropped the suspension by 1 inch, I dropped the sway bar length from stock by 1 inch, more or less. So we'll see how that looks and feels. Should be good, hopefully. But like I said, let's go over to the other side and I'll show you how I did it. Very simple. All right. I finally got it off. Take a look here. Of course, the ECS, the new one on the left, and the old one, the stock one, which is almost 13 years old now, is on the right. Take a look at that, the difference. That's a big thin spring. That's a nice small thick spring. That's a nice thick spring. Looks really nice, of course. Obviously looks way better and it's way beefier, way more performance oriented. But supposedly this doesn't actually lose any comfort. In fact, a lot of people say that it's more comfortable than stock. Hard to believe, but we'll see. But what I'm gonna do is I've measured the gap that I want to get rid of. That gap that I want to get rid of was pretty much 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and try to remove exactly 1 inch from here to here, from the middle of this hole to the middle of this hole. So of course, starting from here, I'm going to measure 1 inch and I'm going to adjust this ride height because the preload, I believe, is already set. I'm going to adjust the ride height just 1 inch, just to lower in the front. Of course, if it's too much, too little, I can always adjust it with it on the car. I can just spin this barrel while it's on the car. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and put both front ones to 1 inch lower than stock ride height. Got it right. Alright, so here's how I did it. I went ahead and of course I removed the sway bar end link right here using a T40 Torx handle actually. And what I did is I got my 18mm wrench right here, put it on here, and I actually kept that still while I twisted the T40 to the right, as if you were tightening it, only because this is a reverse thread, because of course the nut would go onto the Torx with the thread. However, since the Torx obviously is reversed, I have to tighten this, and when I tighten this, well, with the WD-40, then it actually starts coming up and it removes the nut. And it's actually a lot easier, I've noticed, to tighten this, I say tighten, righty-tighty, the actual Torx inside of the nut instead of having to move the wrench back and forth over the nut, unless you have a really, really thin ratchet wrench. Once I finish that, I go ahead to the top, and I remove these 3 bolts, of course, 13mm, 1, 2, 3, right here. And then the last thing that I do is remove this big bolt right there. You can see where I'm pointing right there. That is an 18mm and a bigger size. I actually don't know what size it is per se because I've been using an adjustable wrench because I don't actually have, for some reason, I don't have a socket of specifically that size. I have bigger and smaller. I think it's between like 22 and 26, something around there maybe. Don't quote me on that. So right there, I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, pop that off. And of course, since the sway bar end link is off, the top strut mount bolts are off, this should just fall right out. I say fall right out, but you do probably need someone to push down the suspension as much as they can while you kind of pivot that up and over towards the back. That's how I did it. I actually got my dad to help me push this down as hard as he could with his foot using whatever leverage he could. It didn't damage anything. It doesn't damage anything. I've seen some people kind of remove or loosen some bolts up there. I don't believe that's necessary. if you just push this far down enough. It doesn't feel bad or anything, doesn't feel wrong. If you push down far enough, it should be able to give you enough leverage and room to actually move the strut clear of the entire area. And obviously, once that's out, the strut that you're installing probably is lowered. So you're gonna need less, pushy down to get it in, which is what I experienced. I didn't need help to put this new ECS back in. So what I'm gonna do is do what I just said, and then I'll show y'all how it looks like at the end. Let's do it. Or you might actually get lucky and be able to impact the entire thing off, which is what I just did. I wasn't even planning on that, but it happened. So that's good. Actually, I'm kind of happy about that. All right, so I got the strut out, but obviously it's so hot my phone overheated when I got it out. But it is out, and here it is along with the other side, of course. Right here you can see both of them. Right here, this was the driver's side, this is the passenger side. Obviously, they're the same. And then here is the ECS tuning one. You can see if I put them side to side and more or less parallel, you can see that I've only lowered it by about an inch, only to see how it looks. Because of course, it is fully adjustable. I can still adjust it up or down whenever I want while it's still in the car by rotating this barrel. I may have mentioned that earlier. But now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and grab this, which is, by the way, significantly lighter. And I don't know the science behind it, if this would be sprung or unsprung, because it's the actual spring. Is the spring sprung or has the sprung spring? Is this sprung or unsprung? But yes, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and just drop this in. Of course, use that same bolt there. And yeah, by the way, a lot of people do say that you have to put something down here to prevent this from going down too far, because then you'll put stress on the cables. That's not the case here. I'm not sure what it's riding on, but it's definitely not holding or pulling on any cables or anything. It might be just my car for some reason. It might just be really weird, but I don't have to remove anything other than the actual strut for it to actually go down. And by the way, this side was a lot easier. I just pushed it down and the strut kind of fell out. It was easier. But now, let's put the new one on, tighten everything up, and then we'll see what it looks like. And then, of course, we'll go over to the back. We'll do the back real quickly. Stick around to the end, of course, to see what the entire thing looks like, and of course how to install the back, because just the front would be odd, but you could do that. But yeah, let's go ahead and finish this up. All right, underneath the car, the sway bar end links, I'm going to go ahead and get a 6mm Allen. The new one is different than the stock, thank God. And of course, I'm going to put this in here and start twisting this to the left while holding this with the 18mm, just like this. And I'm going to tighten these together, tighten it up there. These do have a torque spec. By the way, everything has a torque spec. This bolt right here is 66 foot-pounds of torque, or 90 Newton meters. These three nuts up here are 31 foot-pounds. And the sway bar end links, everyone says different things. Some people say 40 foot-pounds, some say 45, some say 30. I just kind of go until it feels nice and tight, without overdoing it, of course. But now I'm going to tighten up this bottom one, this top one, and then I can tighten, of course, this big bolt, the three little nuts on the top, and that should be it for the front. All right, so here's something that no one says that they probably should say. The front ones are not the same, left to right. And I learned that the hard way. Because whenever I went to put that one, and I put it on and I tightened the end link, sway bar end link, it was hitting the side of the car. It was just already hitting. And the suspension was fully dropped and it was hitting. So, yeah. I'm switching sides now, because nobody on YouTube actually mentions that. And yes, it should be a given that you should check both left and right. And I did, and this made the most sense, but I was wrong. And nobody mentions this. Nobody says this. And here I am, having to undo all my work and redo it the right way, because nobody said anything. Now, I'm not playing the victim. I'm not saying that somebody should have told me. But it would have been nice if in any of the videos on YouTube, somebody would have mentioned that these are not the same left to right, even though the part numbers are pretty much the same. Because if I show you, you'll notice that there is a slight angle from this left to right as to this. You can see how this little guy, this little hanger, you could say, is off-centered. That makes a pretty big difference when the sway bar end link is actually attached to it, because I put it on the inside. The car is here, the inside of the car is here, and the sway bar end link was like this hitting. It should be the other way, away from it, obviously. All right, I've gone ahead and lowered this side off of the jack stands. Now I'm gonna do the same thing over here. And then we can see what the front looks like, a little sneak peek, but mainly and more importantly, we're going to do the rear right after. So let's get straight into that. Alright, obviously the suspension is kind of out of whack because it's just been sitting on a jack stand. So I've got to move the car back and forth a little bit. And yeah, but until then, I think before that, I'll go ahead and start with the rears. Alright, fronts are finished. Finally, it's about time. It's day 2. It's been taking a little while, but it's just so hot lately. So front is finished. I'm not going to show y'all yet, but it looks unreal. Let's go ahead and do the rears real quick. Now we're at the rear. This should actually be a lot more straightforward and a lot simpler. There's a big bolt back here holding the strut on, and up top, for the 3 bolts, we've actually got to go inside and remove this speaker cover along with the actual speaker itself, because underneath that is the access to the 3 bolts, which is kind of actually a really clever design to put it inside, because, well, I mean, where else would you put it? Because of the design of the car, it would have to go somewhere around here. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take off this big bolt. I cannot determine what size it is at the moment until I get down underneath, but it's a pretty beefy size. I'm going to try with an impact. Hopefully that works. If not, then I'll have to get a wrench or a breaker bar, but as you can see, it's not a lot of room. So what a lot of people do is they actually start, loosening stuff. But I am going to go up here first, but I'm going to go up here after, and then of course, I'll show y'all how I do that. And then we can take off the rear strut, compare it to the new one, and then put the new one on. Alright, here's where I'm at so far. It hasn't been easy, I gotta be honest, but I'm finally removing the lower bolt. What I had to do, actually, is, against what I wanted to, I had to loosen this guy right here. So what I did is I got a socket, and I removed the nut from here, and I pushed this up. That way, I could get this 13/16 wrench onto the bolt right there. It wasn't easy at all. In fact, I actually had to use a jack to actually start pushing this up. Using leverage, because there was no way I could get anything else in here. It wasn't easy, but I finally got it loose. It took me maybe about like 20 or 30 minutes just to start loosening it, because I could not find a way to get leverage. And I saw the videos, they all said the same thing, and I was like, that's easy, I could figure that out. I could not figure it out. It's not easy, but I did get it, finally, with this guy. Saved my life, honestly. The little angle as well did help to avoid this guy right here, because if it was straight, I'd probably be hitting it here. So yeah, just try to find out how you can do it yourself. It's not easy. But now before I fully remove that, I've gone ahead here. I've pried this guy off, the little speaker cover right here, with a trim piece tool. I've removed the speaker with a Torx for these 3 little screws you can see right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the little foam right there. And once that foam is removed, I actually have access to the 3 top bolts mounting the top of the strut. So I'm going to remove those, and then we can finally peel the whole thing off. Finally. It's been pretty long already. Maybe not for you, but for me it has been pretty long. So I got the rear off. It was not easy. There's not a lot of room to work with, and it's a lot more tedious to get out because obviously since my car's rear-wheel drive, the axles are obviously going to be pushing up as well, so it's kind of hard to push this down to get it out. But I actually managed to find a way to put it through here. Since I loosened this up, it actually fit through this little area right here, and I could get the entire strut out all the way out. Of course, with the 3 nuts right here that were holding it on, I finally got it off, and of course I'm not going to need these anymore. ECS Coilovers bring some. You can see right there is where all of that was. And I apologize if I sound a little muted right now, because it's currently like 100 degrees right now, and I'm tired, I'm filthy, and it's hot. This isn't easy, but I will prevail. Now, I've got to figure out what to do with the stock suspension here and the new one here. I've got to see more or less kind of what length to get it at, because for the front, I way underestimated it. I lowered it by 1 inch, but it was still a stock ride height pretty much. So I had to lower it like 1.5 inches more, and then that's what made the actual difference. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start guessing around here, more or less, because I only want to lower it about 2 fingers. This might be it. And of course, if it's not, I can always just adjust it, which is the best part about these coilovers, is they're just so adjustable, and you don't have to take anything off. You can just take the wheel off and just adjust it from there. Super pleased with that. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. I already got the preload ready. Everything is good. Time to put these on. I'm so excited. And of course, the rebound I put to the softest. Probably not a good idea. The fronts are at the softest, and they're pretty jiggly, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But I'll probably put these up maybe like 2 or 3 clicks. We'll see. Of course, this is just the installation. In a future video, there will be the review and, setting it up and how I like it and what I believe is the best. Because I also do autocross every so often, and of course with these, my autocross times should severely drop, which is very good. But let's get these on.
Taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me. They'll be calling me royalty.
All right. I have just finished everything. It was not very easy, but I did get everything on, and the car is finally lowered. It took me about, I would say, a month and a half to get suspension dialed in just right at the right height and the right comfort levels. You know, the preload and the rebound and all of that. It was really annoying, but I finally got it right. Check this out. This is now the F10 535i on the ECS tuning coilovers. Check this out. You can see here in the front, just amazing. I can barely put one finger in. That's just what I wanted, but check out how mean it looks. This car has been needing this for the longest time now, and I'm so glad that it finally has it. And of course, in the rear, check this out. Same exact gap, just barely one finger. Look at this. And I really do think that these nicer, thicker tires really complement everything being lowered. Check that out right there. Oh my God, I absolutely love it. Of course, with the white line taillights. Just simply stunning, honestly. You can see over here on the other side, it's the exact same thing. Wow. Just a finger in here. I am so happy with how this looks. It just looks unreal. This car has been needing it for the longest time, and now it finally has it. Of course, the car is still in tip-top shape, but it looks so much better now. Finally lowered. I am so happy. But of course, that is about it for today's video. If you liked it, of course, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll stay notified when the next video about this car drops, because there is a lot more content coming. But like I said, that is about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Take care.
Best to give me your loyalty, 'cause I'm taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me, they'll be calling me royalty.